Have you ever listened to the pod and thought it would be awesome if Jen stopped being nerdy about movies for 60 seconds and talked about your business instead? Well, my friends, you're in luck. Watch with Jen is looking for sponsors. Do you own or run a theater, bookstore, film fest, website, school, physical media firm, pod, streaming channel, or small business that might like to advertise on Watch with Jen? Whether you're interested in sponsoring one episode or several, please reach out. You can get a hold of me at contact@filmintuition.com. Thanks so much. Hey, this is Jen Johans at filmintuition.com and Film Intuition on social media and Letterboxd. And this is Watch with Jen. Well, this week I am so pleased to welcome two terrific new guests to the podcast. We have Natalie Jenner and Sarah Kozloff. Natalie Jenner is the internationally best-selling author of the Jane Austen Society and Bloomsbury Girls, which have been translated into more than 20 languages worldwide. A former lawyer, career coach, and independent bookstore owner who lives in Oakville, Ontario with her family and two rescue dogs, Natalie's latest work of historical fiction is the wonderfully well-researched novel Every Time We Say Goodbye. Sarah Kozloff is the professor emerita of Vassar College, where she taught film history for 33 years. Her publications include the BFI Classic volume on Best Years of Our Lives and the chapter on romantic comedy in the NORTON Introduction to Film Genres, which I have, I think, in the other room. Yes. And it's amazing. I mean, I'm one of those geeks who would go to the bookstore, the used bookstore, whenever it was right after finals time and trying to buy up any textbooks people were selling back and, just go to town. It was the best. So thank you so much for being here. I'm in awe and just thrilled to have you both. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you so much, Jen, for having us on today. And I was so excited when Sarah agreed to join as well, so we can talk about her incredible knowledge of the movies that we're going to be, I think, chatting about today. So just thrilled to be here.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see you both. Natalie and I met for a memorable lunch in Rhinebeck, New York.
Yes.
5 years ago, before the pandemic. Yeah. And this is, I guess, the first time we've seen each other since then.
Oh, yes. Wow. I love
we've
that.
We've messaged and communicated
through, we've
stayed in touch, but this is the first time we've actually, I think, Zoomed,
Yeah. Nice new glasses.
They're the ones that are specially for the distance to the computer screen.
Or playing piano. Do you have both glasses?
Because I have to have two sets. Because
I do too. I can't do that. No.
Yeah. So,
well, wait till you get into cataract surgery, and then you can choose which focal length you want for your eye.
Always a silver lining, right, Sarah?
Yes. We need this. We read a lot. Exactly.
Yes.
And
that's right.
Reading, of course. Natalie, congratulations on your new novel. I loved it so much. Every Time We Say Goodbye. It's just so rich in detail, the historical information. I learned things. It was kind of funny. I was reading it at the time, and thank you so much for sending it. At the time, I was prepping to do an episode on Visconti, and you mentioned Visconti. And so some of the stuff you were talking about was overlapping with either episodes I had done in the past or research that I was doing in the future. And it was just kind of serendipity. So I want to say congratulations. And how has this been, this book tour experience?
Oh, it's been incredible because I had my first series of in-person events because Sarah debuted, was it early April or late March, Sarah, of 2020?
It was January 2020. The first book came out in
Yes.
I'm also a novelist.
Yes.
I read fantasy. And so I had a four-book series that came out January, February, March,
April.
In 2020?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, what are the books? Let's promote those.
It's called The Nine Realms.
Okay.
And the first book is called Queen in Hiding.
Ooh, I like that.
And
good.
the problem
really
was I was on book tour in March, and the publicist from tour called me and said, everything is shutting down.
Oh man. Yeah.
So that was kind of a heartbreak. But at least I did get January and February, and so I had which you didn't get, Natalie, right?
No, my book, my debut, which is called the Jane Austen Society, released in May of 2020, and I'm up in Canada, and everything was shut down, all the bookstores.
Yeah.
And our version of Barnes & Noble, which is called Indigo, wasn't even counting its sales the week my book released. Like it was really odd. And I remember it took I think a year before I saw it on a bookstore shelf. So I wrote about a bookstore while I was waiting during that year of 2020. And that's Bloomsbury Girls, my second book.
Yes.
And then I finished and delivered that in May of 2021. And we were just coming out, right? It's been a year, vaccine. So it still wasn't like normal yet. And I got the idea for this book. So I actually started Every Time We Say Goodbye, the book that you've read, Jen, I actually started it 3 years ago.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, so the research had a long time to kind of percolate and get referred to and baked in. And I would finish and I would have to wait a while for comment from my editor. And when I say a while, I mean months and months and we get into a new fiscal year, And so I just kept amplifying things. But I think Sarah will know this as well. And I think, Jen, when you study film and you study narrative, I mean, it's all choice. Yeah. All it is what am I putting in and what am I leaving out? And does this really need to be here? And what is its function? And is it doing multiple things? Is it just vanity? So I remember there's a quote about Jane Austen about that she just kept working through it over and over again until the charm of composition was dissolved. And I was like, you have to kill the ego, right?
Yes.
And so when the ego was dead, was when I think wrote my best stuff, which is always the last chapter that I write, which is not necessarily the last chapter of the book. And it's because my editor has said, there's something you've mentioned, but I'd love to see it. And that's that other element of choice when we create storytelling, right? Yes. It's that, even if I mention this, do I need to show it? Should I have someone describe it? How elusive should I be about it? And so this book, which has a lot of information in it, my goal was to have it be fun for the reader and meaningful, which is an interesting balance. And the decision of what to include in terms of the research was the hardest part, because this was a very fascinating, and Sarah knows this from her study, this is a very fascinating, scary time in filmmaking, with the Red Scare, McCarthyism and everything, and Blacklist and the Gray List and all that stuff going on. But the second storyline, which is only 6 chapters out of about 43, takes place in occupied Rome in 1943, and about female resistance and this resistance members. And this is not the most known story of the war. It's being told, but for a period of time it wasn't. And so I wanted this book to both deal with life in the 50s at a really complex time politically in America, with the emigres working in Italy on film, and then life in occupied Rome in 1943. So there was a lot. It just,
Yeah.
But you weave them together so seamlessly that, the chapter headings help.
Yes,
of course.
Yes, they reorient you pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay,
And,
now we're
that's
back.
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's still, we pass a place in Rome in the 50s, and then we pass the same location in Rome in the 40s, and we get this feeling that almost the streets are inhabited, right, by the ghosts of the war, which is really the feeling I think you wanted to.
Yeah, you got the theme. Yeah, no, I wanted to convey that. And Sarah actually, Jen, this is funny, but Sarah has met my husband and daughter, because they were with me on vacation in the Hudson Valley when we reached out to Sarah and said we'd love to try and meet. And, the thing about this book was because it was started in 2021 and I was missing travel, and Rome is probably my favorite city. So I really went back to places that meant a lot to me and my family, that we had, like, we used to go for lunch every day at the Casino Lago and the Borghese. Like, that was our favorite restaurant. So I really wanted a sense that these were well treaded places by myself as well, in order to get the reader there. And so I picked places, like the Casino de Valadier. We had sat at the very top with this beautiful solarium skyline view of the Vatican and all of Rome. And, we basically, and then I asked my friend, because there's a map in the book that's, all my maps are done by a neighbor. And I put down the places that were my favorite places. And then when I realized there was a schoolgirl assassin making a flight through Rome. Right. And the hotel is actually, like, in real life, there was an assassination. So for me, the hotel becomes the anchor, and then I could go through Rome and just revisit my favorite places in two very different ways. La Dolce Vita, 1955, and the world of filmmaking and Fellini and all that, and 1943 occupied Rome, which was like a living hell. So it was really, it's a very meaningful map for me in that way.
That's great. And I love that I'm talking to you about it right now, because I don't know if you know my friend Susan Elia McNeil, who writes the Maggie Hope books.
I'm pretty sure that she's going to have, or has, my same editor now.
Oh, does she? Okay,
yes,
great.
I think she's at St. Martin's Press for, and because Sarah, the imprint for your trilogy, your quartet was Tor at Macmillan. Yeah. So actually, Sarah and I are under the Macmillan family as well. So anyways, back to Susan McNeil.
Yes. Well, she just finished the Maggie Hope series, which is a World War II female spy American who has family in England. She winds up, it's 11 books. It's set in World War II, and she starts out as the secretary to Winston Churchill, and then kind of goes through the ranks and all of the research. And it ended like before the end of the war, but you can sense the tides are shifting in the final book, The Last Hope. And it was fascinating to talk to her about her research process, including some of the places she could visit. And I think the first time we talked, things were still a little bit locked down, countries she could visit and could not, and how you kind of stumble into plots and ideas that you weren't aware of beforehand. And one thing I love too about her books is she does so much research, as you do too, and you both do, that at the end she has historical notes and then like lists of sources, because there's so much, like you said, you want to leave in, but you can't figure out how to work it in the narrative seamlessly. So it's kind of like, if you're curious about Kim Philby and where he winds up, so I love that.
Natalie, I want to go back to the sort of palimpsest, double layers, because and I know this was on purpose, there's a third layer in your book, which is famous movie scenes, famous movie locations, right? So when you're talking, every time you talk about the Spanish Steps, I see Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck. You deliberately included the dancing barges on the river, right?
Very, very deliberately. And also what I didn't know, Sarah, was when I was rewatching Roman Holiday for the podcast today, I had forgotten that he meets her right outside the Via Sacra on the Via de Imperiale. And that's where she's like tranquilized out on the bench and he stumbles by. And I was like, oh my gosh, because what's really interesting is I do write in order, sentence by sentence. Every day I just do a chapter. But with this book, the first thing I wrote that I pitched to my agent is what's called, I think, chapter 3, which is when the movie producer, John Lasseter, is wandering through the Sacra and he runs into our protagonist, Vivian, and that was the very first 2-3 pages I wrote. And this was a time during lockdown going back to film, where I was watching Roman Holiday, Summertime, Three Coins in the Fountain. Like I wanted to be back, and I watched 9 3 times with Daniel Day-Lewis. It's like I was watching stuff over and over again just to put myself there, which is interesting because Bloomsbury Girls, my second book, it was watching over and over again the 84 Charing Cross Road movie with Anne Bancroft.
Oh, I love that film.
I know, and that was like visually. I modeled the layout of the bookstore in that book on that movie. So it just goes to show you how permeable, going back to those layers, right? How permeable it is. If you love film the way we all do, and you love books as well, like we do.
Right.
Yes.
But it also works for people who, I mean, that's one of the things an author has to juggle. If, someone's never been to Rome, or someone's never seen Roman Holiday.
Yes.
It still has to work for them.
Yes. Yes.
So these are very tricky things that we have to work on. Right.
Yes. And, it's interesting you say that, because for me with Roman Holiday, I have a daughter who is like 22. And so she's of that real like young generation right now in society that is sort of changing the way books are being consumed and sold, and the use of TikTok, and she's part of that generation, at least, even though she's not necessarily into it. And the one thing I knew is, it's very interesting because she'll say to me, my generation loves that guy. And it'll be some actor from like 40, 50 years ago. And so she'll tell me who, and she had mentioned, I remember this, that Gregory Peck was, and she goes, not Gregory Peck and Roman Holiday, Gregory Peck and To Kill a Mockingbird. Like, so that was hilarious, right? Because everybody loves Atticus Finch in that movie, and his portrayal is so wonderful. But I did know that although not everyone has seen Roman Holiday, more people have probably seen Roman Holiday than other movies that exist. Like it's generationally
older films.
It keeps going down. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it today was because it continues to have some kind of like hold on people, and it's really fun is to watch it and try and figure out why. And I think I did. I told my family at Father's Day brunch yesterday.
I have a theory too, so we'll have to.
Oh no, it's so interesting. We'll compare. But before we get to that, but I remember when I was writing the book, not only was I channeling Roman Holiday because I had watched it, but I said to myself, and it was very tactical and strategic, and this is what you do, unfortunately, when you're a commercial fiction writer like I am, and you want it to be fun and reach as many people as possible in a way that is an imperative for you in terms of, honestly, the business arrangement with your publisher. I mean, the cover gets done a certain way. Like everything is it comes down to business, just like Hollywood's a business, Sarah, you know. And so, and that's fine. But in playing to how do I make this as accessible to as many people as possible, I knew that most people remember, if nothing else, there's a handful of scenes from Roman Holiday, and they happen to be places that we loved as a family as well. So it kind of was like, that was fortuitous and strategic at the same time, which is, I think, kind of like how you write.
Right. I thought that the commercial parts were including Sophia Loren. And
no, that's interesting. Yeah, no, that was a thematic.
She didn't have to be.
No, she didn't have to be there. And I think one of the reasons why, I mean, well, I'll tell you right now, there's 4 cameos.
Right.
Ava Gardner's in there because of Bricktop. And Bricktop's in there because of her devout Catholicism, which is a theme for one of the characters in the book.
Right.
Gina Lollobrigida is in there because she was in an academic article footnote about the making of the Cinecittà refugee camps continuing to be present during the war. And there was a footnote that mentioned that one of the refugee doctors from Yugoslavia had married Gina Lollobrigida. And I was like, so that made sense. That's why I picked her.
Right.
And she's not even in it as much as her husband. Like he really becomes a character.
Right.
And with Sophia Loren, I had been watching a lot of documentaries about actresses, including Sophia Loren and also Ingrid Bergman, and learning from I'm a former lawyer, learning from a legal standpoint, the situation with the lack of divorce law in Italy in the 50s and the impact that made on a lot of people to the point where they couldn't even get divorced abroad, because Carlo Ponti and Sophia Loren had looked at getting married in like, New Mexico or someplace like that.
Yeah.
And they found out if you do it, Italy will not recognize the divorce or the remarriage, and we will charge Carlo and put him in jail for bigamy. And so there were these, and this same thing kind of happened with Roberto Rossellini and his estranged wife.
yeah.
Like, I think they went to France, like changed their citizenship and like had to do all this. So actually, Sophia Loren came into that book at that moment because we don't know the full story. No spoilers, but we don't know the full story of what's going to happen to one of the characters. And well, both characters really. And one of them is going to become very entangled with the church in a meaningful way. And the other one is dealing with thematic issues around people who cannot get an annulment. Right. And how that will impact. So that's actually why she got in it. So with each cameo, there's a different reasoning. And at the same time, a very commercial decision because these are the most famous actresses of that time.
Yeah.
I love that you included Sophia Loren because she's my mom's favorite actress. Yeah. I'm a part Italian on my mom's side, but my grandma's neighbor actually knew I loved movies when I came and visited my grandparents, and she came downstairs and she was from Italy, and she just said, I hear you love movies, and do you know Sophia Loren? I'm like, oh yeah, I loved it. And she said, well, I grew up with her. And so she came in and she told me about being in the same bomb shelters and the beauty pageants and getting discovered by Carlo Ponti. And they stayed in touch. And Sophia, when she would come over, and my grandma's neighbor lived in Chicago in a big enough place, Sophia would just stay with her. And wow. She had some theories on the marriage and some, maybe Sophia should have wound up with this guy she liked Carlo, but she had some issues. But I loved that because it made me think of all the stories that I heard from my grandma's neighbor. So I just wanted to say thanks for including her. That was so good.
Wow.
I'm going to go back to theory. This time it's going to go real fast, but I want to go back to theories about Roman holiday. Yeah. My theory about why. Well, there's two. That's in two parts. One, you realize that the movie is a rewriting of It Happened One Night.
Yes, exactly. even with the bedrooms, yes. Like exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Mm-hmm. So it's harking back to the most classic, the film that started it all, really.
Yes.
And then it's breaking the genre convention.
Yeah.
By not letting them be together.
Yeah.
It's Cinderella in reverse too.
And I think that ending.
Yes, it's the ending. It's the ending.
And the timing of the ending.
Yes.
The way she walks down a row of reporters all in one long shot, and you're waiting to hear their decision.
Yeah.
And also the way in that ending you see how the characters have changed.
Yeah.
Yes, she stands up to her stubbornness, that he becomes a good guy, that even Irving becomes a good guy.
Yeah, even Irving.
Yes.
And she says, Rome, of all
by all means,
Rome, right?
Yeah.
And you know that even though they aren't going to be together, it has been an incredible experience for both of them.
I absolutely agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the ending. I think the ending, first of all, is it's very angsty. I mean, that's the ultimate in angst. And there's no catharsis. So as a viewer, I think you're searching for the catharsis, which is where you realize, wow, just how much they've changed. And when I was watching it again yesterday, there was this moment when she leaves with her entourage and she goes out that back door, and the way Wyler filmed that ending in a really interesting way, as you were just describing, with this really long view back.
Yes.
Gregory Peck is coming towards you. He's coming at you because he's going to be starting a new life. She's going into this much more cloistered existence, but she's going to be much more assertive, and she disappears off the side, which is a really brilliant way to film it. But what was interesting, and I never noticed it before, and I don't know why, because I think I'm usually crying so hard. Honestly, I cry every time at the ending of this movie. But when she goes through the door and everyone's leaving, he is very tactically staring at that door.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a moment where you go, he's wondering if she's going to come back out on some level in his emotional, that he's now able to access, because he's been so, he's been like, what he was at the beginning, he's being really kind of skivvy sometimes. And he actually, at this moment, you realize he's accessing some emotional openness to a possibility that he rationally probably realizes no. But you could just see this vulnerability and hopefulness that wasn't going to go anywhere. And it's just for a flash. And it just got me. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But also, he stands there still.
Yeah.
While everybody else is moving.
Mhm.
And so Wyler tends to use long takes as opposed to cutting.
Oh, yeah.
And that stillness, that sense of pacing and time is what just gets you as a viewer, right? And then I'm sure the music is soaring at that moment too.
Yes. Yeah.
What I love too, comparing it to Best Years of Our Lives and the ending again, it's more deep focused photography that had Greg Toland, different cinematographer here, but it's the same approach of a man watching a woman across the room, and it ends, completely differently. We see Dana Andrews, like, every woman wants to have a guy just like walk across the room.
Oh,
and then, but in Gregory Peck's case, can't do that. You have to be still. So it's kind of like he is doing that same approach, the long takes, the deep focus, and just, letting the actors...
working with lighting and with music. One other thing about Roman Holiday, I want to be sure you guys know, Wyler was such a cultured, educated director. I mean, there were people like John Ford. He wasn't a Philistine, but he pretended to be a Philistine. He would say, I never read The Grapes of Wrath. You liar, John Ford, you liar. But, and he was always would say anti-intellectual things. Yeah. Whereas Wyler was embraced being a cultured European American.
Yeah.
And he hired, for Roman Holiday, he hired the cinematographer and the composer from Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast.
Oh.
Yeah.
So to give it that timeless fairy tale quality that Cocteau had just created, Wyler, says, well, they'll work on my film.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's another thing that makes it really great.
Yes.
Yeah. But so to go back to Best Years, it's interesting to me, Jen, that Best Years is such a touchstone for you in your book, because obviously it takes place in between both of your storylines, right?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
So it's in my top 10. It's a movie that I go back to the way I go back to Jane Austen books. It's a movie that I go back to, and I don't know why, but you notice things and then you forget them. But with The Best Years of Our Lives, I remember watching it several times before the pandemic when my daughter was still at home, because before she went off to university during the pandemic. I remember we both loved it so much. I mean, first of all, we both loved Dana Andrews.
Oh, yeah.
So we both love Laura. So we just love him in this movie. But it's a movie that I think it tricks you. And Sarah's written this wonderful article on William Wyler's wars. And there was a quote in the article about the luminous banality. And it is one of those rare movies that one of the reasons I go back to it, and it's such a touchstone for me, is because it feels so viscerally real on an emotional level for a variety of reasons. One of them is the performance of Homer, which is a very naturalistic, un-Hollywood-ish performance that is so touching. And also Wyler is a wonderful romantic, and he has wonderful moments between couples that are very real. And one of my two all-time favorite scenes of a married couple in the movies of any stripe is when Myrna Loy and Frederick March are dancing together, and they're teasing each other in this way that only a married couple of many years can do. And the other moment is that, sorry, I cry whenever I say this line. She goes, don't you know how many times I told your father that I hated him and I meant it, and how we had to fall in love. I mean, is everyone who's been married for many years knows that is as honest and real as it gets. And it jumps out at you in this movie. So I love going to this movie because it gets right into my heart and it kind of nests there. And then I see things I didn't notice before because of the wonderful Wyler and the Greg Toland long shot. There's always so much going on in the frame that you can't catch it all, and you notice things. So this movie to me is almost like the best of movie making in terms of people coming back from the war. I feel like it was the last time they could almost make this movie, because I think we've seen this with the pandemic as well. Like when you're just coming out of the trauma, that's actually a time when a lot of people want to make sense of it. But then when enough time goes by and you're able to forget it,
you sort of push it away.
Human nature to push it away because you've been left to embrace life. And so there's a balance there. And this movie, I think, was made in, April 46. So honestly, within less than a year of the war ending, and just is incredibly reflective, I think, of its time in a way that is unusual and raw, and moving. And I kind of carry it with me, Sarah, honestly, through many different things that I write and do.
Yeah.
There's so much written on Italian neorealism. I think of Best Years as the closest that American cinema ever came to sort of American neorealism.
I'm so happy you said that.
Because we do have the unprofessional actors. We do have shooting on location. We do have Hollywood studio lighting, but we do, we have Hoagie Carmichael kind of playing himself in this just incredibly wonderful way, right? And we have a capturing, which was really Wyler's hope, a capturing of something more sincere and more realistic than most Hollywood treacle. And I really have to give Goldwyn a lot of credit.
This was his final film for Goldwyn.
And this is the one that he finally won the Academy Award for. And Goldwyn, let him do this. And, let Myrna Loy and Teresa Wright dress in everyday clothes. And cast Wilma, Kathy O'Donnell, as an unknown. So as I say in the book, I think it's the women who really carry the movie. That the movie proposes that love can heal trauma.
And I love, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I loved what you were saying so much, that love can heal trauma, and also that the war was going on at home. But I'm sorry. I stepped on.
Absolutely. That everybody was involved. And to some extent, everybody was traumatized. Because you were traumatized if your husband or lover was taken away from you for 2 years.
And each of the characters has a scene where she is, I think, I'm not sure about Myrna Loy and Frederick March, but the other two love stories, Wilma and Peggy, they both have moments where they're not married yet. And in a weird inversion of that bedroom scene that we talked about, the connection between It Could Happen One Night and Roman Holiday, or It Happened One Night, that it is very chaste, these scenes, but they are the women helping the man in a physical physically nurturing way of helping him get to bed as part of that restorative process that is ahead of them, and showing them that I am the woman that you love. I'm the person you love. And I am going, sorry, I get emotional. I'm going to be the one that does this for you. And and Wilma says, I don't know until I try, because Homer has just blocked her off about we'll be able to handle it. She's like, you have to let me try. And so he has to be vulnerable enough to know that maybe it'll be too much for her. And she's confident. And that confidence in those partners that they're going to be able to do it is the very strength that those returning soldiers and men need. So I think from a relationship as healing perspective, the movie is rife with that, and then examples of what will not sustain and heal you.
I was watching this morning actually on YouTube a documentary that William Wyler, I think, was made for PBS in the 80s. And there was this great scene where Billy Wilder is talking about him, and he first calls him the classiest picture maker that ever lived. But he was saying that, Wilder's like, I'm not a sentimental guy. I laugh in Hamlet. I'm not a pushover. But he said 3 minutes into Best Years of Our Lives, I dissolved in tears and I cried for 2.5 hours. And he was citing the scene where from behind you see Harold come home.
Yeah.
And parents. And he said that was like, nope. Then the rest of the movie, he was just
I bawl every time because I see there's something so brilliant about, I mean, so real. And Sarah, you'll know this as someone who's so expert on Wyler.
Yeah.
There's something so real about the way the little girl comes out of the house.
Yes.
He doesn't run to him because that's not what a little kid would do. A really little kid wouldn't run to you the way we would. A grown-up would. She's going to first tell everyone.
Right. Homer's here.
Homer's here. And she keeps yelling it. Homer's here. Homer's here. And every time she yells, I just bawl harder and harder because he got it right. Like that felt very real to me.
You know that Wyler was himself traumatized by the war because he lost his hearing. And then the crazy Air Force said, well, maybe this is psychosomatic. We'll send him to a hospital and everybody will pretend that he can hear. And
oh my God.
Oh, man.
So they were pretending that he actually could hear until his
gaslighting.
Like something out of that John Huston documentary.
Yes. And Tally had to sort of rescue him from that hospital. But also he has said that, it's very famous. You always see the clip when Frederick March comes home and Myrna Loy sees him down the hallway. He says that was his reunion with Tally. And so, I mean, he poured his own feelings as a disabled, traumatized, returning vet into the movie.
That's really interesting because I did not know that. So thank you first of all, Sarah, for knowing, like sharing things like this. But I'm really enjoying this talk. I wrote in my notes when I was watching The Best Years of Our Lives that in that moment of reunion in the hallway between the married couple, the children are framed on either side, I believe, at the forefront. And I remember thinking, this is a married person's understanding of how the marriage is the fulcrum. The marriage is the essence. The children are going to grow up and leave you. The marriage has to function in a certain way, and it's wonderful when it does. And it's filmed to reflect that. And I remember thinking that this is something that I don't know. I think in a weird way, I feel like older generations sometimes understand this better is how important the marriage is. And what I mean by that is I think there's a lot of emphasis, obviously, and we want to be friends with our children and play with our children and have all this great time. But I do think that this movie is very much about how if the couple is healthy, then everyone around them will be healthy.
And the family will be healthy.
The family will be healthy, and how important that is. And being brave enough to say, this is really important. We have to get this right. And you're going to have to put up with alcoholism. You're going to have to put up with someone not making a lot of money. You're going to have to put up with a lot of hard stuff in life. But if you can see through it and create that strong union, that is part of what's going to get us through it, which is going back when The Best Years of Our Lives is going back to the bonds between people, which Wyler does such a brilliant job with the whole beginning, act of that movie, Sarah, with the constant framing of the three men in a rearview window. That is this constant.
In my little book, I talk about how he uses frames, and the reason that Billy Wilder starts crying in the homecoming is the frame of the screen door.
The frames within frames that he uses.
Yes. It makes it sort of timeless. It makes it sort of a hymn to the fallen. It makes it archetypal. And Wyler just uses frame after frame after frame and mirrors and coupled with the Hugo Friedlander score, which is, like Aaron Copland, and it's a hymn to the common man. I start crying during the credits.
Yeah.
because of the Friedlander score. Because once there was a time when I say in the book that America was in the glare of history and felt that it acquitted itself well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sarah, I loved what you were saying about, well, all of that. I love the way you were phrasing all of that, but especially talking about the frames and how he uses them in tandem with the score. It was reminding me of the first film class I took when I was 16 in college. We had a professor who had gone to AFI, and he was obsessed with Redford and showed us Ordinary People. And it was the first time I had ever seen the film. And so he paused it every 10 seconds to like point something out. And he was teaching us about framing and blocking and how it was making it 10 times more tragic and more just the way everybody was in their own space. And so listening to you and also Natalie talking about the hallway scene and where the children were placed, you kind of would imagine somebody like Redford, well, also being an actor working with people, but people who love this film, I mean, they might have unconsciously, absorbed it, but these are great lessons in filmmaking. There's a reason why Wyler was the most nominated director. I mean, who knows, Scorsese and Spielberg are on his tail, but there's a reason. So I loved everything you guys were just saying. Yeah.
But to me, it's so sad because, I mean, we three love Wyler, but my students at Vassar, they admire directors who are more edgy.
Yeah.
Personality.
More neurotic, more, delving into forbidden topics or whatever. And Wyler would be seen probably as too sincere,
Precious.
too sentimental.
Yeah.
To be.
That's a good point. Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was watching that he's probably like, for everything, people like Bette Davis and Audrey Hepburn and Streisand and Olivier crediting him with teaching them how to act for the screen.
Yeah.
He's probably the least discussed, under-discussed filmmaker. And it was kind of reminding me of like Norman Jewison, Stephen Frears, Alan Jackula, these people who
Martin Ritt.
Martin Ritt. Oh my God.
Love Martin Ritt.
Me too.
George Stevens.
And
George Stevens is like one of my favorites. Yeah.
And all of these you just mentioned were sort of liberal politically.
Yes.
And that's something. I mean, you can only teach so many films in a semester or whatever. Yeah. Why should I teach films by some horse's ass who named names and betrayed his friends? Versus someone like Wyler, who fought for the First Amendment, who
started that group.
Yes,
the CFA,
First Amendment, tried to get people freed from Nazi concentration camps. Yes. I mean, shouldn't we put our spotlight on the people who are good people too?
And absolutely. And there's a cynicism that gets rewarded.
Yes.
And I'm up in Canada, but I look at like the best of America, the best of its history is a lot of what I've been writing about. And my next book actually takes place in 1865 Boston and very much involves, the aftermath of the Civil War, Louisa May Alcott and Jane Austen. I kind of I just do like a hodgepodge, but there's something so beautiful about the willingness as an artist, I think. And I try to do this in my own work in a really plebeian level. There's something so beautiful about being willing to show, here's where we can head to. Here's a beacon. Here's what it's going to take. We might not pull it off, but let's try. Let's take this trip together. And all of these movies, and one of the reasons I love George Stevens, and I get very emotional talking about George Stevens because of his presence at the Liberation.
He did a wonderful thing. I mean,
he just stayed He stayed for months at great, obviously, psychic trauma and peril, and did the thing that he could do, which was film it. And that was incredible. His movies, when like one of my all-time favorite romantic comedies is The More the Merrier, about the housing shortage in Washington.
Yeah, I talked about that with
I love The More the Merrier. Well, I watch it every year. It's fantastic. George Stevens was, even Woman of the Year. He was making movies that were coming from that more innocent place. He comes back from the war, and he tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, did he do A Place in the Sun?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That is the kind of movie and The Place in the Sun, I think, is the beginning of sort of like an edginess where you're almost not expecting it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's traditional film noir, and then there's this movie that's kind of tricking you a little bit into like these beautiful two faces, right? Of Montgomery Clift, and you're just kind of,
this is going to be a great romance.
This is going to be this great romance, and he subverts that, and you can see that there's a tension in his filmmaking. So what was really fascinating for me was, I didn't feel that tension with The Best Years of Our Lives, and I didn't feel it with Roman Holiday. And Roman Holiday is actually made in 1953, I believe, at Cinecittà and on location in Rome. And so it's being made at a time that is only 10 years after the occupation, 9 years after the liberation of Rome by the Allies. And it's just such a different country, so full of gelato and this life ahead of them that is going to be really fascinating. And that I in my book, I loved immersing myself in 1950s Rome, because I am not sure there was anywhere that was more fun in the world. And in fact, Diane Cannon, in her memoir, that I just listened to an audio, and it was actually really fascinating, about her relationship with Cary Grant. She was living in Rome in like the late 50s. And she was like, this was like the best place in the world. Like, it just was like magical. So that's one reason I wanted to write about it, because there are these times in history where, for whatever reason, there isn't that tension. There's a bad side to that tension not existing, and no one's plumbing it, and no one's figuring it out or paying homage or memorializing. But it does lead to a certain kind of psychic energy at that time. And Roman Holiday is a very sad movie in some ways, but it does also capture that feeling of freedom and that feeling of joie de vivre and living, well, the Italian version, and living in the moment, that I envy. And that I go to that film because it gives me a happy day of freedom.
Yeah. The dark side, you mentioned it, the dark side is Fellini's La Dolce Vita, where you see that it's all just meaningless orgies and drinking and
temporal pleasure.
At the end, there's that beautiful, oh God, that makes me cry. That beautiful young girl says, "Don't you remember me?"
Yeah.
And he's so gone. Yeah. Marcello is so gone. He doesn't.
There's no meaning. Yeah. There's no meaning to the existence at all.
Right. It's just that monster fish on the sand.
Yeah, we're heading into more existential fare too, with Leone and
exactly.
Il Sorpasso, getting into that.
Yeah. So, I want to talk just for a moment about something that's so strong in your book, but really so important, is the issue of censorship. And how, your characters are trying to make a movie and they keep running into censorship. And the censorship that Wyler ran into, the fights he had about the drugstore scene in Best Years of Our Lives.
I was wondering, with the newspaper headline and the discussion, right, about who a real American is.
And how they had to change the dialogue in that scene. And then he tried to make Carrie, another Dreiser adaptation, and it got censored to bits.
Of course, these three was a huge.
These three.
Yes.
The wonderful, you can cut this out if you want, the wonderful anecdote about Samuel Goldwyn, when he said, I want to make a movie of this Lillian Hellman play, these three. And people said, but Sam, don't you understand that the women are lesbians? And Goldwyn said, I don't care where they're from.
And then Hellman explained it that she just thought it was a terrible lie, but that's funny that Goldwyn had no
Oh
idea.
my gosh, that's hilarious. That is so funny.
I love the joke, well, not really a joke, but Tally talking in the documentary. And she said in like the late 30s, early 40s, she would awaken and see Wyler in the middle of the night, like mashing his teeth and like getting all, and then he'd wake up and he'd be like, I had the most terrible dream. He was fighting with Goldwyn.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, one of those work dreams where you're like, can I dream of something great? And it's like you're back at work. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. It's no, I was going to say about the censorship is that so I start researching this book and writing it in 2021. And this really is, and again, I'm Canadian, but my feeling is that is sometime during, I think, the early years of the pandemic was when a lot of the really aggressive talk started about the library, like having, and then I remember, like, I think it was a couple of years ago where it was like, librarians and bookstores in particular we're going to have to sign off and make sure that material is suitable and you have to read everything. As someone that had a bookstore, I mean, there's no way I don't know what's happened with that kind of attempts, but it was very much in the air. And as I was writing this book, I knew I was going to be writing about McCarthyism, and I knew I was going to be writing about the sort of stringent, forces on filmmakers and storytellers in America, that they would even go to Europe to film. I was doing an audio course on Italian cinema as a refresher. I had studied in undergrad, and it was like 20 hours of history of Italian cinema in the 20th century. And I remember as we got into the 50s and starting to see that there was this censor commission that had a lot of power. And then I found a lot of academic journal articles that would give you people on the ground, like villagers, talking about how the priest would come in the movie house and grab the reels and yank the children out. It was very grassroots.
Cinema Paradiso, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. On the ground, kind of literally forms of censorship. And so I remember thinking, wouldn't it be ironic if you've left America because of the Red Scare and you're in Rome filming and you come up against it again? Because what that's really coming up against is, and again, we might have to cut this part out, but it is getting scarily close to fascism. A lot of this behavior.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay, good. And so what I felt like is I was very haunted in my research. And again, I get emotional talking about this. About what was going on in Italy, because it was incredibly complex during the war, and people could belong to one of many different factions that were against each other within their own borders in a way that is historically somewhat unusual. And I just remember researching this and realizing that must not have gone away, right? That there, and you also learn about how there was still some Nazism in Germany after the war, and there were still and then we see this with what's great about the best years of our lives is that drugstore scene that Sarah mentioned earlier. There's a newspaper in the man's hands, which I'm not sure I could always notice until I got my big screen TV, and I think this is a movie that I would often watch, on when I was younger. And I don't remember the headline exactly, but it was something to warn about, right? To warn about communism. And then there's also the talk with the father to his children about Japan, and they're so different from us, and there's a lot going on that's being portrayed very elliptically, but it's showing this continuing divisiveness. And in fact, I think Hoagie Carmichael, ironically, I think it's Hoagie who says in playing this version of himself, if we don't find a way to work together, the next time this happens, we're just going to blow ourselves to smithereens. It's really fatalist. And that was something that the more you research this time period of the 1940s into the 50s, the more you become, I don't want to say depressed, but very conscious in a way that is very scary and also reflective of the world today, which is this constant looking for the other, this constant attempt to create the other, that is so toxic. And I wanted to explore that in my book by the inverse of that. So with all my books, I'm not very focused on family usually. I'm usually focused on a group of very different people that come together. And honestly, Jen, I think that's the love of film in me. There's this kind of collaborative union of very disparate personalities that each have a strength. They come together, they save Jane Austen's house, they come together, they take over the bookshop from male management. And in this book, every time we say goodbye, I wanted to show very different people from a handful of different countries: England, Italy, Australia, America, finding a way to come together and help each other heal, even though not that these particular characters that had been on the opposite side from each other, but that experience of war and the decisions everyone had to make, these were very hard decisions, and people weren't always happy with the decisions they had to make. And I can't judge them because I don't think anyone knows sometimes until they're in some of these situations. But I wanted my characters to help each other despite any differences and come together. In my book, they come together over one character's search for her mother, who she has learned is in the refugee camp at Chinichita in the end of the war. And it is based, this whole storyline is based on a real movie called Emerita, directed by Jack Salvatore, who is very little known, but was in the beginning of The Bicycle Thieves, Prince of Fox, Orson Welles in tiny little parts. But he was also making movies. He was making hygiene films for the United Nations, but he was also making movies. And he made this movie Umanita that basically was made for the United Nations Refugee Commission and like left on a shelf. And it was sort of found and sort of unveiled, I think about 15 years ago. And it shows that there was these camps at the studios even after the war. And I remember just being really touched by that notion of people with absolutely nothing, not even like the clothing on their backs, being in this artificial movie palace and living in the very teatros where Fellini is going to film, you know? And I remember thinking, what a weird, inverted, topsy-turvy existence that would be. And our responsibility, I think, the message I wanted to get across is how all of us are here because of the actions and sacrifices of everyone that came before us. And that I'm big on pay it forward. So the other thing I want my books to do when I portray these environments and these hardships is I want people to feel hope, entertained, fun, gratitude. And I want them to be cognizant that a lot of people are not as lucky as we are today. And whatever small choices we can make are the least we can do. And that's the theme of my book. One of the things I love about movies is that they are this incredibly communal experience that we can all relate to each other on. So Sarah and I could be the most different two people we're not, but if we were the two most different people, we are bonding over our visceral love for these movies by Wyler that connects us. So that's the other strand of all this, is how much it's the art. Ultimately, the art is the one thing we all have in common, and it transcends everything.
Yeah, that's basically why I started the podcast. I love the idea of, I mean, I'm one of those people who would still be in school if I could afford it. But, you know, every new episode, it's a different survey class I'm basically taking. But also, it's kind of like a good way to pay tribute to the past, because if we forget this history and we forget the people that came before us, we didn't really invent anything. It all happened in the past. I think it's pretty cocky of us to think we only, something just happened. We invented sex or we invented war. You know, you need all of this.
My college students always thought they invented sex.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes, exactly. And one thing I love about Best Years of Our Lives, to go back to what you guys were saying about people coming together from all backgrounds, is you have people from like the wrong side of the tracks, somebody who has money, people middle class, all branches of the military, all different background ages. I thought that was really good. And it wasn't contrived the way that sometimes now when you have the limited series and they want to appeal to everybody, and it's like, okay, we need a dad, a grandpa, you know, that kind of thing. No, it felt very natural and very like what was going on in World War II.
The thing about art, books, movies, that seems to me so special is that your enjoyment of them is only doubled when you share them.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not the same with food, right?
No.
If you're going to share your meal, you only get half of it, right?
Yeah.
But you can share the best years of our lives or Roman holiday with hundreds of people. And it takes nothing away from you. It actually just increases your enjoyment by 100. Right?
Yeah, the movie is great. What's better is the cup of coffee afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Where you guys all talk about it. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And you feel that connection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially coming out of the pandemic, which was so, I know a little bit about Natalie's circumstances. I don't know yours, Jen, but it was so brutally lonely, right? For most people.
Yeah.
And to bond over a great book, a great movie is our ways of reestablishing connection.
I started this in March of 2020. I was going to start it anyway, but it was just ironic. And so I was amazed then how many people wanted to talk. And so it was a good way to just keep celebrating art.
Sure.
Yeah. Just like today, being able to talk to you guys and learn and appreciate some of my favorite movies even more. And we're talking about William Wyler. Are there anyone who's listening who isn't maybe that familiar? Are there any other favorites you have that he directed that you want to make sure they seek out?
I can guess what Natalie will say. Should I tell you?
Yeah.
Wuthering Heights.
No, actually.
Oh, you surprised me.
Yeah. And I'm drawing a blank, but did he do the Children's Hour?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love the Children's Hour. I think that for me, like A Place in the Sun, almost like they sort of like bookends almost to like the 50s, although I think the Children's Hour is like early 60s.
Yep.
It's this sense of it's not what you think it, then it is what you think, then it's not what you think. Like it's just I find, and also that's Lillian Hellman as well, right?
Yes.
The Children,
Yes.
Yep.
So I actually think that's the other one of his that I think is a masterpiece for me, along with the best. Even though I know it's not considered to be one of his,
Oh,
but
I
it's
agree with
it's
you.
the one that I really, and just today too, like it holds up.
Well, it's Shirley MacLaine and Audrey Hepburn are pretty
Can't go wrong.
Yeah. And James Garner, who was graylisted, but he cast him. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, well, Wyler always cast the blacklisted.
Sarah, I'm gonna guess.
You guess for me.
The Little Foxes.
Actually, no.
Oh.
I like Dead End for a 30s film about social problems.
Yeah.
With Humphrey Bogart and Claire Trevor. And he yells at her and says, "Why didn't you wait for me?" And I mean, it's I think that's an amazing piece of socially conscious filmmaking. I also like a film that a lot of people haven't seen, but The Desperate Hours from 1955.
Oh my gosh. I actually did an episode where we talked about it. I love that film.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bogart
again. I mean, well, Wyler can do, and Jezebel is kind of great camp.
Yes.
Bette Davis said that Wyler was the love of her life.
Huh.
That's interesting. She did have a quote in the PBS doc where she said if he would have asked her to jump in the Hudson River, she would have done it.
Yeah. He did. Yeah. So that's, So
I also love the beginning of the letter with her. They were such a great, and Little Fox is such a great team.
Yeah. They were great.
Oh, there's one other one that I love, but it's because I love Henry James, because he did The Heiress. Did he not?
Yes.
The Heiress.
The Heiress. I actually think it's a masterpiece. That's like late 40s. Is that 48? Yeah.
49 maybe.
49?
It's Olivia de Havilland.
Montgomery
and Montgomery Clift.
Oh, and that ending. talk about an inversion of Roman holiday, or not an inversion, but a subversion. Like that is like, you're not going to be together, and it's really angry.
Yeah.
So it's,
Right. It's really feminist. I think I wrote an article called Wyler's Women, where I tried to argue that
Ooh.
that he was more ahead of his time in terms of being sympathetic to women, sympathetic to women's problems, willing to work with really strong actresses.
Yeah.
I mean, John Ford would find the weakest actress he could possibly find, because it was all about the men, But Wyler went and just Funny Girl with Barbra Streisand.
I think she says in her memoir that just came out, and she calls him Willie, right? And I think she said like he was like utterly patient with her questions about camera placement, camera movement. That's the little seed that's going to grow and give us Yentl and the Prince of Tides one day. And like she attributes a lot of her learning.
She was mentored by him.
Yeah, very much like he was the one. So, and that's like,
the shot that always makes my heart leap out of my chest is from Funny Girl when she's chasing on the tugboat.
Yeah, the tugboat.
Chasing Omar Sharif, and the helicopter shot comes around and then comes down on her holding the yellow roses.
Yes, the flowers.
And and she's singing, "Don't rain on my parade, don't tell me to stop." It's just an amazing moment of bravura filmmaking, but also bravura feminism.
Yes. And that's interesting, because that movie by William Wyler, the more I think about it, as a young woman watching a lot of musicals, like I love the Hollywood musicals so much. And I think I've seen them all like multiple times. I got to that one at an interesting stage in adolescence. And I remember thinking, there's a lot going on in this movie that has not been portrayed about women before.
Yep.
And in a way that was revolutionary for me as a young woman in the 70s. And I remember thinking, I just don't think you can. I remember thinking like, this is a really interesting way to look at a woman.
Yes.
And I don't feel like I've seen this before in film. So that's coming through that feminism that you were talking about, Sarah.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Well, ladies, I want to thank you so much for doing this. This is a real pleasure. We'll have to come up with another topic, and come back for the next book, or just, what are we talking about next week? No, but this
we could keep going. We could keep sharing more.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to Hawks yet. So.
Oh my gosh, I love Howard Hawks. Yes.
and even though I hate him, I love Hitchcock too.
Oh, I
myself
huge fan of Hitchcock,
but I love him.
Well, then Jen, one of our debut friends, Stephanie Roble, has a book coming out, and I think it's late September, called The Hitchcock Hotel.
Oh, cool.
No, you have to look it up. I'll send you some info on it. I've read it. It's amazing. You will love it. So
perfect.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Bye.
It's great to see you.
I also want to thank everyone for listening, especially my patrons who support the show and help fund my research, equipment, film rentals, RSS fees, and more for as little as $1 per month at the Film Intuition Patreon, which is the home base for the show. Other ways you can support the podcast are by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to Watch with Jen wherever you get your podcasts, and also checking out the cool merch store hosted and created by our talented logo designer, Kate Gabrielle. You can find the merchandise store, including shirts, tote bags, stickers, and more by visiting filmintuition.com and clicking on the shop link. The show's theme music is solo acoustic guitar by Jason Shaw and is available in the free music archive. You can also reach me or interact with Watch with Jen anytime on Twitter, either at Film Intuition or our Watch with Jen account as well. Well, until next time, please take care and happy movie watching. This is Jen Johans at filmintuition.com and filmintuition on social media and Letterboxd. And this is Watch with Jen.